From tomorrow, the only people who need to isolate are those who have COVID and the people they live with. And after 10 days, their isolation ends. Positive cases will have to notify their contacts themselves, and those contacts are asked to just monitor their own symptoms. In the next few days, rapid antigen tests will become available from thousands of sites, including pharmacies and GPs. And from March, they'll be sold to the public through retail outlets. So fewer restrictions, but for some, it is still not enough. Here's Mitch McCann.
At Auckland's Cafe Hanoi, owner Krishna Bodhika is under pressure. She runs 4 restaurants struggling for customers, and her staff keep getting pinged as close contacts.
I just had 2 more go down before I came here, so I've got, it's very hard to keep track.
She now has 8 to 10 staff off work. Her day is spent covering holes in rosters. It's exhausting, even before there's time to worry if customers are going to come through the door.
All of my time taken up with spreadsheets, trying to figure out how long people have to isolate for, getting their data from them.
For Krishna and businesses across New Zealand, there may be some respite. With thousands of positive cases and thousands of contacts at home, the isolation shackles are coming off.
From tomorrow, only cases and their household contacts will be required to isolate.
No longer will close contacts be stuck at home, only needing to stay put if they're symptomatic. Household contacts with no symptoms can return to work after 10 days if they have 2 negative tests.
I'm hoping that customers will start to come back. Absolutely, that would be our dearest wish.
Schools too, wishing for more staff, may welcome some teachers back tomorrow. Today's announcement will lessen their pandemic paperwork.
Every time we got a positive case before, we had to do our own contact tracing and upload that and then email the community. So it's great.
There'll be 8 people that can come to work tomorrow that otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So it is a significant pressure release.
Then there's major changes to testing. With widespread frustration at a lack of rapid tests, expect much more to become available.
Rapid antigen tests will become the primary means of testing for COVID-19.
RATs will be available at thousands of testing sites across the country. GPs and urgent care clinics have them today. Pharmacies will also have them soon. A move the opposition says should have been in place a long time ago.
It's just frankly unbelievable that people have to wait until some date in March, who knows exactly when, to be able to go to a pharmacy and buy a rapid antigen test.
One pharmacy told AN that handing out RATs to sick people puts their staff at risk. She wants to hand them out to those who are preparing for when they get sick.
We're not geared up, we're not PPE ready for dealing with a huge influx of symptomatic people.
Today's shift signals a move to free up the health system for those that need it most. For some, though, it wasn't enough. Protesters taking frustrations out on the Prime Minister. Anti-mandate, anti-government, anti-Ardern. The PM's van chased as it left this Christchurch school. She was there to discuss child poverty, but protesters were ready and waiting to hijack the visit. The media too in their sights. They remained on the road even after Ardern left, desperate to be heard.
Tell the truth! Tell the truth!
While protesters here and in Wellington demand a return to normal, this is as close as it gets for now. The Omicron wave we've waited months for is here. Phase 3 begins at midnight tonight.
Well, Mitch McCann joins us now. Mitch, have all schools received some rapid antigen tests yet?
Well, Sam, it seems most schools are getting RAT tests, but perhaps not as many as they would like. Balmoral School, from that story we just watched, told us they'd put in an order or a request with the ministry. They were told they would not get as many as they wanted. Lucky for them, a parent had donated some RAT tests to the school, presumably from their workplace. At the same time, Papatoetoe School, south in Auckland here, they were reasonably happy with how many tests they had been getting. The principal, Vaughan, was off to pick up some more, or his allocation, after our interview this afternoon. So there's a kind of disparity between what schools are getting them and whether or not they're getting the amount that they need. Now, at the same time, in terms of how many schools actually have cases of COVID-19 or are being affected by COVID-19, that is dramatically rising. This time last week, there were around 320 schools in New Zealand that had people away because of COVID-19 or they were being supported by the ministry. That's risen to 717 as of 5 o'clock tonight. Now, within that number, how many staff and students are away from school or are being treated for COVID-19? That's just over 2,000. So while we move into phase 3 tonight and more people will be going back to school tomorrow that are not household contacts, we're still going to see a number of people out of school in the coming weeks as those numbers really just aren't going down at all.
Mitch, thanks for that update.
Russia's assault on Ukraine has begun. In the last 2 hours, Vladimir Putin announced a special military operation in the Donbass region. But already tonight, explosions have been heard in the capital, Kiev, and in Kharkiv. Before the attack began, Ukraine declared a state of emergency, its president saying, "We will defend ourselves," and telling Russia, as you attack, it will be our faces you see, not our backs. The UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting in New York right now. And earlier today, the Secretary General said the world was facing a moment of peril. Vladimir Putin ending months of speculation and starting war. Early morning televised address to the people of Russia announcing a special military operation in Ukraine. He said Russian troops would not occupy the country, but would aim for the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. Putin's declaration of war was immediately followed by reports of missile explosions around the capital, Kiev.
I tell you what, I just heard a big bang right here behind me. I thought we shouldn't have done the live shot here. Three to begin with.
That sounded like a fighter jet overhead.
It's thought securing airspace could lead to imminent Russian boots on the ground beyond the rebel-held areas of Ukraine. In a chilling direct address to Ukrainian soldiers, Putin called on them to put down their arms, adding those who try to interfere with Russia's actions must know that Russia's answer will be immediate. Condemnation from world leaders has been swift.
President Putin, in the name of humanity, bring your troops back to Russia.
As rumours of a pending Russian invasion spread this afternoon, the UN Security Council called an emergency meeting.
We are here tonight because we believe, along with Ukraine, that a full-scale further invasion into Ukraine by Russia is imminent.
For months, Russia has been holding a gun to Ukraine's head. Now, President Putin's finger is on the trigger.
But as the diplomats talked, Putin ordered a strike and the explosions began.
The ambassador of the Russian Federation 3 minutes ago confirmed that his president declared a war on my country.
The first sign it was imminent was Russia closing its airspace on the border of Ukraine. That followed a series of cyber attacks on the Ukrainian government. The president declared a state of emergency today. He still held out hope for a diplomatic solution, urging Russia to talk, but making clear Ukraine would defend itself. Military reservists were already on standby to fight. The official call-up can't be far away. Foreign Affairs Minister Nanaia Mahuta is in London on a diplomacy mission and has just woken up to the news of what's happening in Ukraine. Political reporter Amelia Wade joins us now. And Amelia, what's she saying?
Yeah, in the last 10 minutes we have had a statement from the Foreign Affairs Minister Nanaia Mahuta. She says New Zealand condemns the Russian military advancement into the Ukraine, saying, quote, Russia's actions are a flagrant breach of fundamental international laws. And New Zealand joins the international community with calling on Russia to cease those operations immediately, and says she is in close contact with her international partners and will put out another statement in due course. Meanwhile, here in New Zealand, National's Foreign Affairs spokesperson Jerry Brownlee has said the time for statements and twiddling thumbs is over. He wants the government to pass a law urgently allowing us to join the sanctions with our international partners, saying that this is a threat to global peace many have never seen in their lifetime.
Amelia Tanakwe.
Well, back to COVID now, and the record surge in cases is causing ambulance delays.
St John Ambulance is seeing an unprecedented increase in demand due to the virus, with one patient having to wait more than 12 hours. Health correspondent Lucy Warhurst reports.
A sudden surge in call-outs has St John's Ambulance struggling to keep up with demand. There's been a 10% increase nationwide, and in Auckland, it's even worse.
Workload has gone up by over 20%, and we're now seeing record numbers of Aucklanders needing an ambulance.
Tony Smith has never seen anything like it.
We are experiencing the highest number of calls and the highest number of incidents requiring an ambulance response that I had seen in the 24 years that I have been with St John.
Coupled with a reduction in staff due to COVID and vacancies, it's causing delays. People in a serious but not life-threatening condition are regularly having to wait over an hour for an ambulance.
The longest delay we've seen in Auckland, this was for a non-life-threatening condition, over the last couple of days was over 12 hours.
It comes as daily case numbers soar, almost doubling in a day to now more than 6,000, and it's reaching those who are most vulnerable. An outbreak at the Bupa Rossendale care home in Hamilton is causing concern after 19 staff and 21 residents tested positive for COVID. One worker who didn't want to be identified told News Hub they're under such pressure that residents are being left soiled in their beds.
Because we are so short-staffed, we are asked to concentrate on medication and meals and fluids. If they are saturated and have faeces, we do that when we have time. They're left there for up to 5 hours. It's very upsetting. We love and care for them, and we want to do our best.
The Aged Care Association says it's symptomatic of a wider issue in aged care.
We're over 1,000 nurses short in a sector that has 5,000 nurses, so 20% down on our nursing workforce is a chronic situation.
Bupa says it's brought in extra help, including support staff from Waikato DHB. It says it takes allegations of poor care extremely seriously, and that they have very clear expectations and standards, which they'll be reinforcing.
So, Lucy St John seeing record call-outs, and we understand that the delays have prompted some anger from patients.
That's right, so St John is bringing in additional resources, but patients are getting angry at the delays and staff are suffering verbal abuse. St John is asking people to be patient and to only call 111 in an emergency. If it's not an emergency, people should call their GP, Healthline, or get themselves to a medical facility. But they are reassuring people if you have an immediate life-threatening problem, they will get an ambulance straight to you.
Lucy, thank you.
Wellington's anti-mandate protest is now an official COVID location of interest, one that thousands of people visited last weekend.
And more protesters are expected to arrive in the capital this weekend, some by sea in a Dunkirk-style crossing from Picton. Alexa Cook reports.
Dozens of protesters pushing and pulling a concrete block out of the way to allow 20 more cars back into the protest area. Police on Bowen Street struggling to hold back the crowd and the cars. The offer of free parking at Sky Stadium expires today, perhaps prompting demonstrators to move their cars back into the camp, where they're at risk of being towed. The Insurance Council says any loss or damage from towing will not be covered by insurance. Police this afternoon reinforcing their barricades, marching behind a forklift wearing riot gear in case of confrontation. Hundreds of officers stood guard while they added more concrete bollards to the perimeter, sparking a standoff but no major scuffles. It's scenes like these that some Wellingtonians are fed up with. A new anti-protest group is spreading the love for affected workers, calling for protesters to go home.
We will stand against the far-right messaging, the people being made to feel unsafe, the assaults and violence that have gone on around it.
While another group has created this video to highlight some of the messaging from protesters.
FACT is very simply asking for the protest organisers and the attendees and those that support them to denounce the extreme elements that are in attendance.
But more protesters are en route, with more messages, some even planning to cross the Cook Strait to reach Wellington, once they find a vessel.
Well, obviously for a start, I'm gonna need a boat.
And a skipper.
So I was wondering, Russell Cootes, what are you up to? There's no one else I'd rather go to sea with than Russell Cootes.
This is the closest that boats can get to Parliament. And although you can turn up and drop people off here, you can't park your boat long term, which is why the Harbour Master is urging protesters to have a plan.
Yeah, talk of flotillas and people bringing their weekend fizz boat up, that concerns me because Cook Strait's not a good place for them.
And neither is Parliament, now a COVID hotspot. Alexa Cook, News Hub.
Heather joins us now with a recap of today's weather, which was lovely and warm again in the north.
Yeah, it sure was, with Auckland hitting 28 degrees again today. That's 4 days in a row it's been hot.